One comment on winter wheat I wanted to make is don't forget, like if you're not used to growing winter wheat that much, don't grow winter wheat on spring wheat stubble. You don't want that green on green. So spring wheat after a winter wheat that maybe volunteered or something. If you have green on green, you're creating that green bridge, and you can get wheat streak mosaic virus in your crop, and it will kill your yield. So you don't want to do green on green, wheat to wheat. So, and I don't know, Brian, can the wheat streak mosaic go from other cereals as well, or is it just wheat to, like, can it go from a barley or like a volunteer barley that you planted winter wheat into, or is that not a thing? I forget now.
I forget too.
Okay.
It'll get into durum, like it'll, you know.
Okay.
Definitely, yeah, you want to control it. There's a couple of winter wheat varieties. Like, which one of those newer ones has it, right?
Is it resistant to the wheat girl mite?
Yeah, like back in the day, it was Radiant that had resistance to wheat girl.
Okay.
But Rob came up with one.
I don't.
Not that popular, but I forget which one it is.
Okay. I feel like it was one that really isn't grown anymore, like Elevate or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it was Elevate. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of was a thing for a few years and then kind of went away once Wildfire came out. So.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not. If it was a big concern, that variety would be smoking right now.
Yeah.
But
No.
farmers are managing that quite well.
Yeah, but the odd time we get someone who has a poor stand of winter wheat that decides to kill it, but doesn't fully kill it before they plant their spring wheat. There's the odd time and sometimes they get away with it, but and other times I'm like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
So green on green. We'll talk about this variety first. The Arctic did not survive the winter well for most of our customers last year. The selling feature behind this variety is that it's onless. It's amazing for forage blends. It's amazing people are green feed. Didn't survive real well last year, so that was a challenge. It did survive. It's patchy. It's thinner in here. We seeded the 18th of September here. Our seed production field actually looks fairly good. It's taller in that field as well, because where it was on, like it was on a foot taller. Yeah. Yep. It had a PGR as well on that field, so very tall. But winter hardiness can be a challenge with this one from what we saw last year. That being said, we also had a challenge with Tadeus last year in our seed production fields and maybe a couple customers, but it seemed like more customers had issues here. So to solve that, I think the goal with this will be plant it earlier. What did we say, Blair?
Yeah, we're trying to mimic like hybrid rye planting, right? So earlier the better, just to get even emergence.
Yeah, so Southern Alberta, we thought August 25th, but cut off September 15th. So you actually get a big enough plant in the fall to survive the winter. And then seeding depth. Seed at 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch. And that should give you a little more protection from winter kill with this variety if you're willing to give it another shot. So the onless is a big selling feature of it. That's the cool part. It's a certified seed use only variety as well, so keep that in mind. You can't farm save it. More and more varieties that we're selling are that way, and a lot of it is tied around the breeders wanting some revenue from the stuff they're putting out there. So now forage crops, that's a little easier to do because it's targeting the forage market, and honestly grain yields on them aren't as good as some of my grain variety, like a Windchill is going to be for grain, but
it'd be 80% maybe at most
for a grain yield. But forage yield's very good, and then with the onless, you don't have to ensile it. So anything to add on this variety? We're out of seed currently until we have new crop. The sales were good, and we shipping some again this summer. So until we have new crop, there's nothing on hand until we clean the next crop.
August,
late August. Any questions on this one before we get Mazen to talk about his new variety? All right, Mazen, give us this is Mazen from WCI out of Lacombe. This is his variety. A little shorter here than I think maybe you would expect, but last year behind our demo plots last year, I think it was like chest height, and it had 2 PGRs on it. I think last year we had 2 PGRs. This only had 1. If you look on the other side of the truck, it is a little taller. So, but it survived the winter very well compared to the Arctic. So, Mazen.
Good morning. Before I talk about the AB Windchill, I would like to mention 2 things about. I've been dealing with Triticale, winter wheat many years at Central Alberta. So one thing I noticed even this year, where I I brought all the Triticale, winter Triticale together, and including AB Windchill, Arctic, and the old varieties. Luma, I should stay away a little bit.
Oh, I think you're good.
Kind of
You're good. You're good.
okay. Yeah. That trial, I decided because it was very dry during the planting first week of September, and I decided to give it one irrigation because I always think winter cereal should be at least the early tillering stage before the snow and the cold weather come, and that kind of lead to better survival during the springtime. This year, the only trial survived is the trial I watered, and it reached the tillering stage, and we lost all other winter cereals. So that kind of really critical. Some factors we can't control, like the amount of snow, the drought during the early spring, but that's one thing. If you can give it one irrigation and have good establishment, that will help kind of doing. And by the way, the trial I irrigated, even Arctic survived, and it looks great over there. Anyhow, the idea about the AB Windchill, maybe few of you remember the old winter Triticale like Luma, Metzger, they were tall and small heads. And our idea was, okay, let's reduce the height a little bit to have zero lodging, and also improve the quality. And this is why we cross our lines with this one winter Triticale from USA. And of course, we want to keep the reduced awns. We don't have awnless yet. And we ended with the AB Windchill. Windchill fits in the middle for most all of the agronomy. So in terms of winter survival, I should say it's better than the Arctic and Tadeus, especially if you plant a little bit north. And it's a little bit lower than Luma Metzger. If we are thinking about 90% winter survival for Luma Metzger, AB Windchill is 88. And the height it's a little bit shorter than the Luma Metzger, but somehow that's led us to have really better digestibility and forage quality. This is the first line. The digestibility, the starch content for the forage yield is equal to the wheat pintail. Pintail was a check for many years in the co-op. So somehow always winter Triticale or Triticale in general comes after wheat in terms of the digestibility, but this line is equal, if not better. And that's because of it has a kind of massive heads, low lignin because shorter stem, leafy type, high winter survival. So that's kind of great. In terms of the maturity or the heading, if thinking about, it's probably at our trial in Lacombe, maybe 4 days later than the Arctic. Arctic is super early. It's almost like fall rye. Yeah, so it's 5 days, but it's still 5 days earlier than Metzger and Luma. So somehow in the middle. So that's kind of this line. It's of course resistant to all kind of rust. Fusarium head blight is intermediate, and yeah, of course punt is resistant. Yeah. Any question about?
And it's a grain or forage. Right? It's registered as a grain as well.
It's dual purpose. It goes both. And in terms of yield, it was like 15% higher than Luma Metzger for grain, and 5 to 6% over Luma Metzger for dry matter yield. Even Luma Metzger kind of tall varieties, but because of the head and the leafy type, it's yield more than the checks.
A few people ask if I grow it for grain, where am I selling it? We do see a few people that are selling it to brokers. There is some brokers who are connecting the dots to some feeders or people that are using it for feed purposes. There's a very small milling market, but it's very small. But so it's not something you can plant the whole farm to. But there's a few people selling it for grain, and as more feeders are using rye, they're also like, well, it's okay to use some trit too. So it seems to be following that rye train for feed. So I think you have the breeder here, so if you have any hard questions, now's your time.
Probably I just want to mention next year probably you will see the first onless spring triticale coming from our breeding program.
In a spring trit. And it'll get registered maybe next
Because
year.
we are out of winter triticale breeding. That's this line and WT50 were the last two lines we registered, and now we don't have any winter triticale. But we are kind of focusing more on spring type.
Question here.
Do you gotta be, like, I'm looking at the 3 lines of Triticale, and typically a taller one will have a long coleoptile and a short one will have a short coleoptile. Do you have to be careful how deep you're seeding that versus that?
For harvest,
No, seeding to get emergence. The coleoptile length?
Yeah, like even in spring wheat, like the semi-dwarf spring wheats, they say don't plant them as deep as the old, taller spring wheats, right? So you think that's the case with winter crops and how deep you can plant them?
Can I just add something to that? Because
Yeah.
you guys are really stressing the importance of getting them in early. And in a dry land situation, quite often, like we're from southern Saskatchewan, and last half of August and the first half of September are incredibly dry lots of years. So if we got to put them down 1.5 inches, 2 inches to get them to germinate so we got a strong crown, can we do that with that, or do we stick to this or this?
I don't know about the germination, that's the effect, but somehow, from my experience, we always look at the, what do you call it, peduncle length or the neck. That's kind of more related to the variety resistance to drought.
Brian had a look on his face.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it in the past. It's kind of like why we're actually starting an ultra late winter wheat project, because to that point too is like, you know, what's the best strategy in a situation where it's so dry that it's like concrete and they're telling you got to get it in now. So you're trying to drill through that to either go deeper, and a lot of guys are just waiting until the rains come. And so what is there a downside to that? Like right here, the ideal date is September 7th for winter wheat. But, you know, the work that we did that was prairie wide, I mean, you can sheet that back a fair bit to the end of September into October, and, you know, adjust your seeding rates, make sure you got that good dual fungicide insecticide seed treatment, and you'll be okay for the most part. So the only thing you got to worry about is that crop insurance deadline date, which is really weird for winter wheat, frankly.
I think they got away from that now.
They did. They used some of our data, which was kind of nice to see.
Well, and I think as far as, you know, if you're on dry land, southern Alberta, Saskatchewan, you probably want a taller variety, so you probably want to pick one of these anyways. But yeah, as far as how deep to plant, I think as long as, I'm thinking you can go that deep, but I don't really know that. But I would pick a taller variety for that situation, basically.
How is threshability on this versus Metzger?
I don't know. Well, maybe Mazen can tell us, but we only had 2.5 acres last year, and it was swath, and I find swathing kind of gets rid of some of the threshability issues from certain crops. So we didn't have any comments, but we're used to threshing rye, and well, rye actually isn't too bad. It's just the straw is wiry through a machine. Yeah, threshability. Comments on this versus something else?
We never had any issue with the triticale. We treat it like wheat and we don't have any issue. Yeah.
Maybe we'll comment on the Tadeus for a sec, and then Mazen, feel free to stay there if there'd be more questions for you, or just you want to wrap anything else you want to say about this variety, or
Not really, but if there's any question about winter triticale in general, just let me know.
the head size on this variety is insane.
Yeah,
Like last
right
year, the
now
heads
it's just
were.
flowering, but if you come and see a couple 2 weeks, it's massive heads. It's a really big heads, and the
Well, and if you look at how thin,
fertility is kind of very high.
if you come back on July 16th, what you're going to see here is this head that was already really big. All of a sudden, it got fat. It's going to add rows on each side of it, and all of a sudden it'll be like a square block on the top
And
of
of
here.
course, the ergot is way lower than the ergot at the old varieties or as compared to the 4i.
That's good, because when we do our
Yeah.
seed cleaning of triticales,
Yeah.
there are times where we have to re-clean that before we can sell it, because there's some ergot levels in some of
It's
that.
not like wheat, but much better than the old varieties of winter triticale.
I was gonna say, so for forage timing on these, they're 2 weeks, if not a little bit more, behind like fall rise for, I mean, those would be taken at soft, like early milk stage. These are like early dough stage, right? So it might spread out a little bit more depending on the year, but these plots I won't be taking for at least another couple weeks, just to get some grain fill in there. Because that's, I mean, you're looking for weight more than anything before you you lose your quality out of it. But they're on soft dough. If you're taking soft dough on triticales compared to like a rye, there isn't as much of a quality loss from what we've seen.
So your TDN would be higher on this when you're silaging it versus fall rise?
Correct.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Mazen, what stage did you get your wheat quality? Like you were getting similar forage
Early
quality to
dough,
winter wheat?
early dough. We
Early
had
dough?
our
Yeah.
trial early dough.
Okay. So
And we
that's
have
really good.
weight chemistry analysis, so yeah. Greg, you have the data about this line.
Yes, it's on the website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It looks good.
it shows how
Yeah, if you want to see the data Mazen gave me on our website, if you look under Windchill, you'll see his chart on there showing all the differences that he found. So, and then Blair's gonna cut these for, at that late milk, early dough stage.
yep.
Now, most people wouldn't be using this for like a high quality boot cut. They're probably gonna go with a rye because it's so much earlier and then they can double crop. A little harder double crop behind a trit, so.
but now Arctic can work in double crop.
You think so?
It's perfect.
Okay.
One thing about the Triticale and Windchill, you don't need to spray PGR. It won't lodge. Don't worry.
We'll push that.
I guarantee you someone's gonna watch it. Well, and I would say, so around PGRs, most forage customers don't wanna do a PGR, cause for us, for the demo plots, I just wanna show whether, some years we get too much lodging, and then, so that's why we do the non versus the PGR, because then if everything goes flat, at least you'll have something, if everything goes flat with the non-PGR, at least we'll have some differences in the PGR. With barley, that is super important, because we could flatten all the barley some years, and other years there's some differences, so that's why we do the PGR versus not. And most of our grain customers would PGR something, just so they can irrigate longer, and not have to pull back on irrigation because something's laying down, so. That's more of a grain customer thing than a forage customer thing. You can stay there, Mazen, it's fine, because we'll talk about the Tadeus right now as well.
Yeah.
It's a certified seed use only product. It is short. It tolerates higher fertility because it's short. It's pretty big seed size typically. Usually we've had pretty good winter hardiness with it, but this year actually we lost a couple fields of our own of the Tadeus. The Windchill and it were in the same area, planted same times. Seeding depth could have been a little different because the Tadeus was on lentil stubble, this was on potato stubble, and I think that was a little more variable, so not everything was impacted the same across that field. And so that one was more even stubble, and it just didn't fare real well, so we actually had to kill it off. So. Now, most of our customers were okay with the Tadeus this year. A few had some issues with this one. But our seed fields look good of this one. But these planted September 18th, they were all planted at 30 plants per square foot. And then we have the Arctic on the other side as well as kind of the outside edge of this. And so you can see it is thinner, but it did survive the winter at that time at this depth, at 30 plants.